Okay, hello. Thank you so much for the introduction, Anastasia, and thank you to all the team at Garage for the invitation, for having us all. I have to say I was a bit surprised initially when you invited me because to talk about Kadist, so the institution I work with and our relation to archiving, because it's a very young institution. It's about roughly 10 years old, also depending on when you date the origin of it. And in a way, I feel like a bit of an outsider in the panel here because it's not my specialty and we're dealing with very contemporary, immediate history, if we can call it like that. So that even defining what the archive is for me, a bit tricky. But nevertheless, I guess there are different ways I could have approached the subject. And the title of my presentation, The Ongoing Archive versus the Timely Archive, was trying to approach two aspects. One, which is this idea of archiving systematically, without even really thinking about it, actually. And this idea of archiving or looking at archive at a specific time for a specific reason. So, yeah, I guess this process of time, as you also introduced at the beginning. So I'll give a short presentation of the institution itself because I'm sure it's not familiar material. And I'll give a few examples. And I'll be talking basically more about tools we are using than our actual projects. And I don't have so many images. We'll show images afterwards. So Kadist is a private foundation based in Paris. It started in Paris because the family who founded it is originally French, but also based in San Francisco in the US. So now it has already this kind of dual identity. And it started with a private collection of contemporary art before actually having a space or an institution. And what's specific about the collection is that immediately the family decided to have an acquisition committee, so already had some kind of institutional intention. And this group of people have really created like the plurality of artistic proposals that now define the collection. So we started the collection around 2001. The idea was that it would be very international, very focused also on emerging artists, and but with no like conceptual framework necessarily, quite open. When you look back in time now, you can see that it's probably a quite conceptual collection with a very strong like political line. But at the time, it was not necessarily like a constraint. A few years later, in 2006, we opened a project space in Paris, which is still the same today. It's a space located in Montmartre, which is a very odd neighborhood for a contemporary art institution. And it's a small space which is about 100 square meters. And it's not a space dedicated to showing the collection. It's really thought as a project space for the residency program we started. So the idea of having this space was actually to invite artists who were already encountered through the collection to do residencies with us and to spend a few months and produce a new project. And along that same train of thought, we opened the space in 2010 in San Francisco, so that we have now like 2 project spaces of similar scale and 2 each having like small teams of 4 to 5 people. I give this information also so you get a kind of idea of the scale of the institution. It's really like a mini institution. And then we developed over the years projects abroad, so that we have these local programs which also try to address like specific local contexts and more international collaborations. So basically starting in 2001, we are an institution born in the digital age. So obviously, we've started having a website very early on. We've already redone the website 3 times in about 15 years. And there's this, in terms of archiving, I think we have this very systematic unconscious practice of just everything being archived as you do it, because we have all our documents, all our registrations for the collection, of course. This is all like the kind of conservation part, where we have to have records for loans, we have to have instructions for the pieces. So this is, yeah, I mean, quite classical. And on the other hand, we have, and when you visit the homepage of our website, actually it's directly divided into collection and program. And we have like all the works on the website as well. So that can be seen as a kind of catalog. And then for programs, we have like systematic exhibition views. And once again, today it's very obvious to photograph exhibitions, but not so long ago it wasn't. So I'm just setting a bit of context here to understand how we're not even thinking of the archive as we do it. We also have this series of video interviews we do with artists from the collection as a kind of living archive, also to put a face on the artists. And yeah, we have different types of small publications. So in a way, these different tools are as much, I'd want to say, as much like communication material as they're actually archives. So they have this kind of double function in a way, to be talking about the projects while we do them, and later on, if we look back, certainly in a few years, they will be an archive. And as a small institution with like these quite process-based projects, as I said, we're working mainly with residencies. We've always tried to adopt like an ethics of flexibility. So for a long time, we did not have like a specific institutional graphic design. And yeah, the video that's running, so this is a kind of demonstration of a typeface that was created by designers Dexter Sinister. Maybe some of you know it. It's called the Meta font. And it's a whole research project these designers did on the evolution of a typeface. And basically, after having run for several years programs with like different designers, we didn't have like a fixed institutional identity. We adopted this typeface actually as a work in the collection in 2013 with a license to use it for 10 years, so that the graphic designers allow us to use this font for 10 years. And the principle of a font, as you can see it, is that it actually changes over time. So here it's, of course, a little accelerated in the video because it's a, like a demo video. But this means that like at a moment zero, even our logo will be using this kind of straight font. And then in a few months, it will have shifted a little bit. So it's just a way, to kind of visualize time somehow through this kind of organic mutability, I'd say, of the institutional identity that can be like the logo of an institution. So at some point also, we started looking back also, because we reached a kind of symbolic date, which was in a way the anniversary of the 10 years. And although we didn't really celebrate this in a specific way, it kind of was a symbolic moment where you were asking yourself, or like reevaluating, like if the identity of the institution was clear and what had been done and what could we do better. And yeah, basically how to tell the story, how to continue the institutional narrative. So there are several editorial projects we're working on right now. One is a kind of small book, a kind of guidebook into the institution, not really like a retrospective book of our programs, but more like a handbook for people who want to know the institution better. And it brings basically people from the institution together, and they all give kind of their subjective witness account of how they've been collaborating with the institution. So that can be like team members, advisors, the family members, artists from the collection. So basically all the people who make an institution who are contributing to the same object together. And another project, and here maybe I can show a few images. Because we work also with two venues, and that also this question of like how to harmonize. Once again, I'm talking a lot about like communication material, but I think in like how we've approached the archive yesterday, there was a lot about that, like posters, invitations, like all these kind of ephemera that become the archive later on. Since we've been doing a lot of work online, it's been very, you know, like diffused into the web, and you don't necessarily have physical objects. But we've been trying to think about how to harmonize also both, like the communication of both venues that appeared in different moments. And we started to do a project of like a common identity of a poster series to announce like exhibitions and projects. And when we started doing that, we realized it would be interesting to kind of go back in time. So yeah, this is like the project I kind of wanted to present with the images. Is this idea of, so I'm showing, this is an exhibition by Mario Garcia Torres. This is an exhibition view actually that the artist himself kind of modified, and then retroactively, because this was a show in 2007. Retroactively, we did this year a poster to announce the show. So in a way, it is a kind of fictional archive that we're building backwards. So yeah, you don't see it too well because it's quite black, but this is like the poster announcing the show that occurred some years ago. And then another example, an exhibition by artist Jan Vo. This is an exhibition view. And then same thing around 2008, and then produced this year, like the poster of the exhibition. So it's also interesting in a way, I mean, also curatorially, to be looking back at projects and with the distance you have to decide actually which image would represent the project, because usually when you do that for normal communication, you don't have the material of the exhibition yet. So you have to kind of decide what image will, you know, encourage people to come see the exhibition. And here we're in a whole different kind of process. So this is another exhibition by Golden and Seneby, who are Swedish artists. And this is the poster, which is related to an event we had done. This is a show curated by a curator in residency on populism. This is a show by Chinese artist, Chou Tao. This is also a curatorial residency by Indian curators from Bombay. Nicolas Paris, who's a Colombian artist. A group show around political ecology with a Chilean curator. A show around cannibalism as the metaphor of colonial relations. And here I'm starting with the poster because this is actually the moment in time where the poster does arrive before the show. And it's a series we're continuing. So this is a show that happened in 2016. This is the actual show afterwards. This is a recent one. So yeah. And so maybe just to I think the transformative nature of the institution also maybe because it's a private institution, and I think this also relates to some things that have been said yesterday about like the question of responsibility of institutions in the archiving process, and like also the mission of the institution itself. I think because this is a private institution, and that in a sense it's very independent from a kind of agenda that would be, you know, overarching. It even allows actually the mission statement to be rewritten over time. So yeah, this is really like a very young institution, and in a way there's this question of like becoming also more mature over the years, and even more professional, I'd say. And yeah, basically how to archive the contemporary, I think is like one of the questions that we wanted to address today. Thank you.